Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Toppled Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro pleads not guilty to narcotics charges in a Manhattan federal court. He declares his innocence and says he's still president before the judge cuts him off. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado has said that she has not spoken to President Donald Trump since October 2025. In a Fox News interview, she has said that she plans to return to Venezuela as she continues to be seen as a key alternative to Maduro. More than a dozen journalists and media staffs were detained in Caracas while covering events, including a pro-Maduro March. Press groups say all are later released, but the group warns of growing pressure on media and calls for guarantees of journalistic freedom. Ukraine's allies gathered in Paris to finalize security guarantees to reassure Kyiv in the event of a ceasefire with Russia. President Zelensky joins more than 27 leaders and senior U.S. negotiators as they work on a joint position for future talks. Activists say at least 35 people are killed and over 1,200 detained as protests continue across Iran. With no sign of stopping, reports say unrest has spread nationwide as authorities and security forces also report injuries amid rising tensions. China says it is strengthening controls on dual-use exports to Japan as tensions rise between the two countries. The Commerce Ministry says the new restrictions take effect immediately. Israel launches artillery and helicopter attacks in southern Gaza, with officials saying a tent of displaced people is hid and 2 family members were killed. Gaza health authorities say the death toll since the U.S. brokered truce began has now risen to at least 422 people. Thailand's army says Cambodian forces claim a new cross-border firing incident that was an accident and not intentional. Bangkok says Cambodia blamed an operational error after Thailand accused it of violating a 10-day-old truce. Now we start this hour with U.S. President Donald Trump has said that the U.S. could reimburse American oil companies for expanding their operations in Venezuela. However, Trump has declined to share his estimate of the cost for companies to repair or expand the South American country's oil infrastructure. Trump's comments followed an attack in which U.S. armed forces and law enforcement struck parts of the Venezuelan capital, Caracas, and captured Maduro and his wife. Despite Venezuela's vast oil reserves, estimated at about 1/5 of the world's total, the country's output accounts for less than 1% of global daily oil production because of sanctions, corruption, and what Trump calls badly broken infrastructure. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ms. Singh, for joining us, Lieutenant Colonel, for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World. Now, looking at this, what strategic objects might the U.S. be pursuing, but what could be the challenges as right now, of course, the investors will be hesitant to go and invest because of the situation and the stability in Venezuela.
Thank you, Asima. With the kind of actions Donald Trump has taken, he is definitely signaling the world that time of soft containment is over, and United States retains both will and capability to unilaterally enforce regime change and then thereafter do things the way they want to do. So his proposal to subsidize US oil companies to work in Venezuela is because, see, first of all, companies will not like to come and invest without government guarantee because it is a volatile state where a lot of things are still not known how things will happen. So this indicates that US may subsidize major American oil companies to Venezuela, which is in a very dilapidated energy infrastructure, and it will, as per Trump, it will take around 18 months. But that for me, it is very, very optimistic. But why they need oil and why they want to invest so heavily in Venezuela? It's because when initially a lot of companies had invested in Venezuela from US, and the oil which is produced in Venezuela is very high in sulfur. So to process that, you need particular kind of refineries which were earlier there before the Hugo Chavez took over. And when the companies were told to shut down and go out, they incurred severe losses resulting into millions and billions. So I think not just this, but the physical dependency of America on to prevent any future regime change and anybody weaponizing the energy, it is important for America to take over, and it also want to displace China and Russia, because in last decade what was happening, Russian and China, they had heavily taken over the Venezuelan oil and with mortgage. So once America gets into it and it starts rebuilding the infrastructure, it can first of all hold itself. Secondly, it nullifies the Beijing and Marcos leverage in Caracas. So the hard reset of Venezuela's foreign policy alignment will also happen if Trump starts controlling the oil. Now the whole world is discussing about the green energy, but why Trump wants to take over this kind of project in Venezuela? It is because the entire thing, the fleet, the microchips, the running of vehicles, everything, even the industry is oil based. And Venezuela is also very rich in rare earth minerals, gold and other things. So it is not that America is only going to invest in the refineries, it is also going to control the other things, but this will also secure and insulate US from the shocks which come from the Middle East. The cost of rebuilding will be something around 50 to 80 billions, which is huge. And as I earlier said, that nobody would like to invest such a big amount without government guarantee. So once you talk about subsidy, it guarantees that in a post-conflict zone, without government assuring, it is difficult to invest. So companies will come forward, and it will also impact the global prices in case the Venezuelan production of oil starts. Then it will also depress the global oil rates. So in a way, it is win-win for everyone. So let's see how economically, it transpires in coming future. Over to you, Asuma.
Yes. Thank you, retired Lieutenant Colonel, for sharing that. Building on that, you already mentioned the global oil rates will be changing. So how do you think this, if the U.S. oil companies succeed in making the refinery or upgrading and installing whatever they need to, refine diesel or make use of the Venezuela's oil reserves, how will this whole thing change the trajectory of U.S. and Middle East relations, which ever since Trump took office seemed like it was warming up or thawing?
See, first of all, it will take 5 to 7 years for these refineries to be fully functional because of the policies of the communist regime which was there in Venezuela. They are actually in a very bad state and the investment is much more. However, the petrodollar is also controlled by the price of every barrel of oil which is produced. And all countries across the world have to buy their have to buy their oil in US dollars. So first of all, this makes US dollar very, very strong. Why Venezuela was targeted? Because it was trying to trade with Russia and China in their own currency. So that makes the American currency little down in the market. But America does not want that to happen. Secondly, if America starts controlling the oil and the investment is there, so the subsidy may not gel well with the investors because they may like to have the price as per their investment. However, once government helps, then the prices can be controlled to a larger extent. So this will help not only America in giving energy at cheaper rates to its own countrymen, but to other industries which are across the globe. And once America starts doing it, the largest reserve of oil is with Venezuela. So once America starts controlling it, America will no longer need the Middle East or other countries to fill in the gap of its supply of oil. So this will help in a seamless supply chain to America. So I think that is one of the major reasons America wants to go in. But we have to actually see, this is a proposal, this is the will they want to do it. But executing it on ground will be a difficult task. The entire infrastructure needs to be rebuilt. It takes time. Then how the market responds to the oil which is coming from America and how America behaves with other countries. That also dictates the oil prices and the terms of import-export with America. And with Trump, things are a little difficult. So let's see how things unfold.
Yes, we will be eyeing that. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Singh, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on, the United States is seeing a fresh wave of global tensions after President Donald Trump issued a series of aggressive warnings and policy threats in just a few hours. This comes days after U.S. authorities captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and brought him to New York on drug trafficking charges, a move that has sparked international outrage. Trump has turned his attention to multiple countries, suggesting Cuba is on the verge of collapse, pressuring Mexico over drug trafficking and openly signaling support for action against Colombia, has also warned Iran of severe consequences amid protest unrest. In Europe, Trump has reignited controversy by insisting the U.S. needs Greenland for security reasons, a claim Denmark quickly rejected. He has also hinted at raising tariffs on India. Meanwhile, Colombian President Gustavo Petro has warned he would take up arms again if the United States moves to invade his country following threats from President Donald Trump. Petro has rejected Trump's accusations linking him to the cocaine trade, calling them false. He has warned that any U.S. military action could spark widespread resistance, saying farmers could rise up as guerrillas and unleash the jaguar of the people. Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Fredrik Nielsen has also firmly rejected U.S. President Donald Trump's repeated comments on U.S. possibly annexing Greenland, asking for dialogue and respect for international law. Now we welcome back retired Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh. She's an international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, all these countries involved and voicing concerns, and U.S. eyeing them for possibly or allegedly their natural resources, etc. Where's the international law? What do you think? Who can enforce that? What happens now that it seems like it's been ignored?
See, Trump's threat are no more words. As I said, he has the will and he can execute it on ground. It has a military might. It controls the world economics because of the SWIFT payment, and it is best in diplomacy. So as of now, I don't think anybody is capable enough to tell Trump in his eyes that what you are doing is wrong. And we have seen the statements which have come from China and Russia, which are the two superpower after supreme power US. They have only condemned, but no one has taken any action to do anything after the Venezuela skirmishes or the action or the abduction has taken place. So this is actually suggests the expansion of Monroe Doctrine and now the Dunro Doctrine. which is very clear about the US primacy in Western Hemisphere and treating the presence of rival power or perceiving threats. And that is why he's justifying his intervention to these countries, because he knows that great powers are great competition. So Trump knows that, if Russian ships or Chinese ships, they want to come and build their airports or the ports there and do the mining in Greenland, then it is a direct security threat to North American continent. And then it has a economic importance also, because Greenland holds massive untapped reserves of rare earth mineral. Same goes for Colombia. It is again, it is very close to America, and the capability is very, very less. So the threat is likely to be, very real for Colombia also. And as far as Cuba is concerned, the strategy would be the economic strangulation by something like controlling Venezuela. And if US cuts off Cuba's energy supply, then it will result in blackouts and famine, and that will again trigger a regime collapse in Cuba. And same goes for Mexico. So we must understand these, the doctrine of Monroe Doctrine is dangerous for the world. And it is a tissue which we see that it has moved from soft power influence to transactional and law enforcement. So what US is signaling that it will no longer tolerate hostile regimes or incompetent allies, something like Colombia and Mexico, if they threaten US security. Why US is bothered? Because China and Russia are growing massively in this region. And same thing had happened why Russia fought with Ukraine. One of the major reasons that it did not wanted to come NATO to its doorstep. Same thing America is saying, it does not want China or Russia to come to its doorstep. We know what is happening in the Arctic region. So as of now, if America is giving any threat, if Donald Trump says something, it has to be taken very seriously. We have seen nobody comes to the rescue. You have to fend for yourself, and this is a kind of jungle raj which is happening. Might is right. Nobody in the UNSC also questioned American actions. So I think it is very important that we have to watch out for how Russia, China, and America, they divide the power in the Western Hemisphere and the Arctic region. So the thing is that situation as of now is very, very delicate. Every country has to watch their move before they proceed.
Thank you for highlighting that. With that, I would thank you for highlighting that. With that, I would like to thank retired Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move the focus on to Europe. Ukraine's allies are meeting in Paris today to finalize security commitments to reassure Kyiv in case of a ceasefire with Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will be joined by more than 27 world leaders, along with senior U.S. negotiators, as countries aim to put concrete military and political pledges on paper. Diplomats say the talks focus on contributions to a multinational force for Ukraine and binding guarantees if the country faces another attack. Officials hope this effort will strengthen coordination between Ukraine and U.S. as well as Europe, and pressure Russia to engage in meaningful negotiations. Zelensky has told the nation the meetings are a chance to boost Ukraine's defense and bring the world closer to ending the war. He has stressed that Ukraine is preparing for both diplomacy and active defense spending, depending on how Russia responds. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Ben Aris. He's a former Moscow bureau head of Telegraph, joins us live from Berlin. Thank you very much, Mr. Aris, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, how credible and enforceable are the proposed security guarantees, and to what extent could these security commitments influence Russia's willingness to enter meaningful negotiations? Sir, you're muted over here.
we should be clear from the beginning that this term security guarantee is being bandied around very liberally. However, these discussions going on at the moment with the EU are not about guarantees. Guarantees means Article 5, like military commitment to, if Russia reinvades Ukraine after a ceasefire, that the West, the Europe, will come to Ukraine's aid, its military aid, that it will send troops that will fight shoulder to shoulder with the AFU against Russians on the turf of Ukraine. That's not what's on the table. And without that kind of guarantee, then there's no real deterrent for Russia not to attack again. And the reason why Europe is so reluctant to do it is they're terrified of getting into a direct conflict between NATO powers and Russia, a nuclear-armed country, and then starting a Third World War, which will end in the sort of mass destruction of Europe, European cities, at the least, if not the end of life on Earth. I mean, these are the stakes on the table. And consequently, Zelensky's been put in a really, really difficult position because he's being asked to give up territory, particularly the Donbass, and that he needs to ensure that Russia won't come and mass troops on his border in the future. Because if he doesn't get this kind of security guarantee, then further down the road, the next time there's a row over whatever, agricultural reports or whatever, then Russia has the option of just massing troops and threatening a second invasion. And Vancouver will have to concede or will be under enormous pressure. And the only way to stop that happening is by having European allies, American allies, promising to come and fight. And then that will stop Putin. That will dissuade him. He also doesn't want a direct confrontation with NATO because in the long run, he can't win that war. Moreover, there's the fear of a nuclear exchange. And so what's happening now is, in the talks going on, is they're trying to work out some sort of formula, some sort of fudge, which provides Ukraine with some reassurance that will be enough to deter Putin. But personally, I think without Article 5 like military commitments, Putin's going to look at it and it doesn't change anything. Because even if Europe puts peacekeepers into Ukraine, a force of some 10,000 soldiers, which is actually probably the most extreme promise that Europe is prepared to make, that Lavrov, the foreign minister, has already said if they're in Ukraine, they're combatants and we will kill them. We'll hunt them down and kill them. And then what's Europe going to do? Declare war on Russia? No. So, you know, for Zelensky, it's an incredibly difficult position. And really his only option is to take these security assurances, which is what's being offered of money and materiel, and take the risk that Russia won't reinvade. I don't see he's got any other way out of this.
Right. And building on that, how aligned do you think these 27 countries are right now with when it comes to the security guarantees and the type of security guarantees they want to give to Ukraine?
Well, they're not very aligned at all. I mean, the whole issue is riven the divisions within Europe and made existing ones worse. And the example everyone points to is Orban in Hungary, who said flatly, look, I'm not paying for this, I'm not doing this, I'm not committing any arms, or when they did the $90 billion loan in December, that it was Hungary, Slovakia, and now the Czech Republic has joined that particular group who said, no, we're not participating, we're not contributing anything. But then other countries as well, particularly most of the support for Ukraine is in the top right-hand corner of Russia, in the Nordic states, in Denmark, and these countries are very committed to supporting Ukraine because they're on the front line. But the further south you go, the further west you go, the enthusiasm for supporting Ukraine decreases rapidly. And that's another problem. I mean, look, simply when we were fighting the war last year under the Biden administration, it was the US plus Europe, all 27 members, that were allied together in order to support Ukraine. But now we've been reduced to the so-called E3, which is Germany, France, and the UK, who are leading the so-called coalition of the willing, the members of which have still not been named. So really, we've got this sort of reactionary small group of very big, very rich, powerful countries, true, who are supporting Ukraine to the hilt, but they're increasingly finding it difficult to rally the rest of Europe. And again, as I said, the bill is enormous. The rest of Europe is being asked to put up 90 billion euros at a time when everybody's suffering from budget deficits and sky-high debt. And the whole coalition of the willing is starting to crumble slowly. And again, they're trying to rescue the situation with these talks and get some sort of reassurance out of it for Zelensky, but it's weak, and he's in an increasingly difficult position, which I think is what's pushing the ceasefire talks, which those going on at the moment are by far the most serious talks and may end with a ceasefire deal soon, since the Istanbul talks in 2022, right at the beginning of the war.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Ben Aris for joining us today from Berlin and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move the focus on to Asia. Iranian Foreign Minister Syed Abbas Araghchi is expected to visit New Delhi on January 15th and 16th for consultations with senior Indian leaders. According to the reports, the visit comes amid rising tensions in West Asia and ongoing protests in Iran, where about 14 people, including security personnel, have reportedly passed away. However, talks are expected to focus on bilateral trade, regional developments, including the Gaza peace process and the developments of Iran's Chabahar port, a key facility for shipments from Afghanistan to India. This will be Araghchi's second visit to India after his last trip in May 2025 during the India-Pakistan conflict. Cooperation with Iran is seen as crucial for India's role in BRICS this year. Now we move on to our new electronics news. At the Consumer Electronics Show 2026 in Las Vegas, LEGO has unveiled its Smart Play platform, bringing its classic toys into the digital age. The system is powered by the LEGO Smart Brick, which has sensors, lights, sound, a miniature speaker, and wireless charging. It allows builds to respond to play in real time without screens. Meanwhile, 3 Star Wars sets will launch first, featuring smart minifigures and smart tags that trigger engine sounds, lightsaber hums, and even the Imperial March. Pre-orders start on January 9th and sets ship March 1st. However, the first brick works with regular LEGO bricks, creating interactive screen-free play that encourages creativity, storytelling, and family interaction. LEGO says this is the biggest evolution since the minifigure was introduced, combining technology with classic play, safety, and openly. Let's listen in.
So, the smart brick is here. You saw it's very simple, right? You have a smart brick, there it is. And, you know, it's just a simple 2x4 brick, so it will click very seamlessly and fit exactly with the same bricks I just showed you. But of course, it's very different. And the reason why it's so different is because it's very smart. So it's got tremendous amounts of intelligence, technology, ability, that's packed all into a tiny silicon chip that's actually smaller than one of the studs.
We've put cutting-edge technology, some of it never seen before, into LEGO Smart Play to create a platform for physical interactive play, allowing any LEGO set to come alive in kids' hands. LEGO Smart Play starts with a LEGO Smart Brick. It's just a 2x4 LEGO brick, except that it's packed with sensors and smarts. There's no screen in sight. There's not even a power button on this thing, but the LEGO Smart Brick responds to what kids do, generating reactions to their actions. It becomes an instrument for their play, and it unleashes their imagination.
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.